first cousin, Kim Martin, about who she was as a person. It's expected that Gerry Nel will wrap up leading Martin's evidence in chief quickly today. Advocate Barry Roux for the defense already said that he will only ask Martin a couple of questions during cross-examination before Nel will call his second witness to testify for aggravation of sentence. Now, on a question from Judge Thokozile Masipa, Nel answered that he believes he will be able to conclude his case by this afternoon. Sentencing is now expected, though, to take place only during the end of November. But for the latest, let's cross over to our reporter outside the North Gauteng High Court today. For the first time on Newsroom Live, we have Manqoba Mchunu. Very good morning, Manqoba. How are you?
I'm good, Eben. Good morning to you and the viewers at home.
Thank you very much. I want to actually just sort of start with sentencing procedures now only being expected for November. Do you have any idea what the thinking of the judge is? Why will it take so long before we'll get the final numbers in this trial?
Well, Eben, firstly, we had been told by the NPA earlier this week that they were expecting the sentencing proceedings to conclude and really expecting Judge Thokozile Masipa to deliver a verdict by Friday. But we have seen this case dragging for the past few days. I mean, we saw the defense calling 3 witnesses and then really taking time with those witnesses on the stand. And the state only got to start with their witnesses late yesterday, which means that we've seen a delay really in proceedings, and then we're expecting this to continue up until late afternoon today. Gerry Nel had assured the court that he will try to be brief and that he will call about 3 or 4 witnesses to take the stand in aggravation of sentence against Oscar Pistorius. But now what the judge did indicate also yesterday is the fact that she wants proceedings wrapped up by Friday, which is this coming Friday, as she said that she will be busy over the next 3 weeks, as well as the court will not be available for the next 3 weeks. Therefore, leaving that to November, where we're expecting then that she could possibly postpone or delay the sentencing up until that time when she returns.
Manqoba, yesterday was quite an emotional day. We saw Junior Barry Steenkamp really break down as they battled. Will it be another emotional day today?
Well, certainly, Eben, we're expecting again emotions to run high inside the North Gauteng High Court as Kim Martin returns to the dock for the second day in a row now. We know that she detailed how the killing of Reeva Steenkamp by Oscar Pistorius has really affected this family, painting a picture of trauma and pain that the family has suffered, saying that this incident basically ruined their lives. She said that it's also taken its toll in terms of the health of both the parents of Reeva Steenkamp, even saying that Barry Steenkamp had suffered strokes as a result of this, and that June Steenkamp has also had to get help, psychological help because of this untimely killing of their daughter. Also highlighting how she herself found out from radio that her cousin had been killed. So expecting to hear more of that. Gerry Nel has indicated that there's only one factor that he has to address with Kim Martin's, and then after that it will then be open to the defense to then cross-examine Kim Martin. They've also indicated that they're not going to be long. In fact, they're only going to be putting 2 things to Kim Martin. So expecting that to be wrapped up early in the early morning, just before lunch. And then we're expecting Gerry Nel to call out other witnesses that he has. He has told the court that he plans to call about 3 or 4 witnesses. And this means that he's left with about 3 of those witnesses. We are expecting that they will include the chief deputy Commissioner of Correctional Services, James Smallberger, who's going to basically counter the arguments that were earlier presented by Probation Officer Annette Vergeer, who painted a really dreary picture of South Africa's prisons, saying that they were unsafe and that they were not equipped to handle a person with disability. Now expecting Smallberger to come to this court and really clarify some of the facilities that they have to house people with disabilities in prisons. We also know that he was very instrumental in bringing the murder accused Shireen Diwani to South Africa. He was part of the team that went to Britain in order to negotiate for for the extradition of Srin Diwani to South Africa. So his testimony is going to be important to really show that Oscar Pistorius can be accommodated in a prison, and that really there's no problem with regards to South Africa's prison system. We're also expecting the girlfriend or the mother of Oscar Pistorius' former girlfriend, Samantha Taylor, to also take the stand. Now we're expecting Trish Taylor to really talk about the troubled relationship that Oscar Pistorius had with her daughter. We know that she's already written a tell-all book about the relationship, in which she really paints Pistorius as being ballistic, a bully and narcissistic. And so we're expecting to hear really what she has to say to this court to try and persuade Judge Thokozile Masipa to give Oscar Pistorius a harsh sentence. Now we know that the options that are available is that Oscar Pistorius could get correctional supervision. He could also get a fine or a suspended sentence, but there's also that possibility of a prison sentence for Oscar Pistorius, which could go up to 15 years. So that's what the state is trying to push, that Oscar Pistorius should do jail time, and they're really going to push that he does 15 years in prison.
Manqoba, finally, I want to talk about the mood of the trial and how this mood has changed. We heard earlier in the week where there was a lot of sympathy for Oscar Pistorius on social media, the broken man scenario that played out and so forth. Is the testimony of Kim Martin a sort of watershed moment where the mood of the trial really changed and the world got a view of the pain that a family, almost a forgotten family in some quarters, have felt within this trial?
Well, certainly we've seen that change again, that shift again in the mood here in court, as the Steenkamps finally, revealed to all of us how really this affected them. We had been, over the past few weeks, people had been sympathizing with Oscar Pistorius, and once that judgment came to say that he had negligently fired the shots, people really got to sympathize, to say maybe it was a mistake. But for the first time now, we're really hearing the pain and the anguish that this family has had to go through because of Oscar Pistorius' shooting on Valentine's Day. So really it shifted the mood here in court, really causing that somber mood. People now starting to really understand how the Steenkamps really feel. We've seen them also in court putting on a brave face during the court proceedings. But for the first time yesterday, we actually saw Barry Steenkamp and June Steenkamp breaking in court, crying in court, really showing their emotion, showing the pain that this has caused to them. We also could hear from the testimony that Kim Martin was giving that really she was really battling to contain her emotions. She was trying her best, but she just could not deal with the situation. She also explained how she's had to go through therapy, how her children have also had to go through therapy, and really how this has really affected the family. This is a side that you didn't know before, but now it's coming to light to try really and show the court that this incident has left this family broken, it's left them traumatized, and it's left them really battling to cope with the situation. So again, means by the state trying to convince this court that Oscar Pistorius should be punished for his actions.
Manqoba, thank you for joining us and giving us a little heads up ahead of this day. As Manqoba painted the picture there, there are only losers in this case, it seems. A broken man, a broken family, nobody wins. A sensational trial for all of us in the media, but it's had a terrible human cost on two families. Now, social media has been abuzz the last couple of weeks with developments in two of South Africa's biggest court cases in its history. The murder trial of Srin Diwani began last week and has been dominating social media trends, but not peaking like the start of sentencing in the Oscar Pistorius murder trial that started on Monday this week. Our media monitoring company, Roy Africa, has been keeping an eye on both cases and has been tracking all the interesting developments. Now, here to tell us about all of this and a little bit more is Managing Director of Roy Africa, Tanya Kuri. Very good morning, Tanya. Always nice to have you with us.
Good morning, Eben. It's always good to be here.
Let's backtrack and maybe do a timeline. Let's start with last week with the Diwani trial, the start of the Diwani trial. How did that go on social media? You know, all trials, it seemed to happen on social media first now before it goes into the courts.
Isn't that true? I mean, we found, specifically because there's no audio stream or televised link from the court on the Diwani trial, people are reliant on social media to tell the story and for us to understand what's going on in court. So, yes, last week we found that only news reports dominated by about 7 or 8% on the Divani trial. Social media taking the rest of the chunk, so over 90% of the conversation and the dialogue about what's happening in court from Divani. If you just go to the bottom of the chart, you'll see, though, that Divani doesn't compare to Oscar whatsoever as far as the court case is concerned. 0.22% against Oscar's balance. So even though Divani is very much in the social media space, definitely no match for the people's conversation about Oscar Pistorius.
Absolutely, and Oscar's case is a truly international court case because of his profile. He really was the face of the Olympics, and that probably shows up as such.
Absolutely it does, yeah.
Now, in South Africa, though, Divani's big.
It is.
Only in South Africa. I want to talk about the interesting moments of that trial, the bisexuality, the gay sites. You know, that's the kind of thing that gets conversations going. I'm sure the revelations must have set social media alight in this country on that score.
Yeah, the content was quite hair-raising.
Risque, one would
yeah,
say.
a little, I'd say. It definitely. It's fascinating. Sex definitely does dominate the conversation on social media. So we put together a chart that gave you an idea of what they were saying. And, you know, the fact that Divani, the second he landed in South Africa, went on to gaydar, and the night Annie's body was discovered, he was actually on those sex dating sites, made an awful lot of noise on that platform. And it is big in South Africa, but it's also really big in the UK as well. Yeah. So we see two countries really contributing on the Divani case.
And it's not something that we speak about very openly in either of these countries. So these kinds of revelations are really sensational, and I'm sure people on social media have a field day with it.
They do. It's my eyes definitely widened a lot while I was
with
doing
some
that
of the
analysis.
Yes. I've seen on my own feed some of the stuff people said were not to be repeated. But let's move on to pre-sentencing arguments here in the Pistorius trial. You showed us the impact that it must have had on the traffic on Divani and so forth. What are people saying now around Oscar Pistorius? Is there a groundswell of pity for Oscar, or are people still angry about the judgment as we've seen the last month?
For the first time, Eben, and in the history of this analysis and of the trial, we've seen Reeva dominate the chart. For the first time, the voice of Reeva has come to the fore. And you'll see there on the top left of the screen, she comes in at 54% of the conversation in the past 24 hours against Oscar's 46%. People talking about the voice of Reeva, the fact that the implications on her family, the fact that Barry and June's lives were exposed yesterday through Kim Martin's testimony, all came through really strongly. And it was a very emotional day, not only in court, but on the social networks.
Yeah, massive impact. You know, one of the spy plays that's been going on around this trial for the last it feels like a year almost, has been Team Barry versus Team Gerry. How is that playing out now, or is that sort of been moved to the back burner as we now see the emotional edge to this trial?
Over 75% belongs to Gerry Nel. People are still well behind Gerry Nel as he puts forward now his side of the sentencing witnesses. And yesterday particularly, because he drew out Kim Martin's testimony, which was so emotional, Gerry Nel definitely featured on the chart. You can see at the bottom left of the screen now the fact that Oscar's sentencing versus Kim Martin, it's only 50% of this is focused on sentencing. The rest was all about Reeva and what Kim Martin had to say. And of course, Gerry Nel features in almost every item related to that.
And people feel that justice needs to be done in this case, isn't it? Is there a back end where some people feel that Oscar is getting away with things a little bit here?
Getting away with murder was one of the biggest trending topics throughout this analysis. And people are angry, Eben, you know, and they're calling for the public's opinion to be taken into account. And yesterday there was a lot of conversation where they were saying, well, the law is the law and it's got to follow process. And another side of the conversation was saying, but the law is there because we, the public, put it there. Yeah. And what we think really does count. So Oscar's sentiment very much swaying to the negative yesterday. yesterday, where when Barry Roux had that testimony that announced that he was a broken man, then there was a little bit of a sway back to Oscar.
Yeah.
But people are definitely in the Reeva camp overall.
Quickly, what about the stunning revelations by the Oster camp this week, actually, around the blood money that the Steenkamps accepted? What has been the public's feeling on that?
There have been two sides. People are saying, well, I mean, why did you take the money in the first place? And then other people are saying, 6,000 Rand a month, really? For the impact that it had on their world? Is that all you offered?
Yeah.
Then there was talk about Oscar offering to sell a car and give them the money for that, and that was refused. And then, of course, the Steenkamps released a statement to explain why they'd taken the money and also that the money was going to be returned. So that made a lot of conversation as well. Blood money was a big topic.
Well, Tonya, thanks for joining us. Just tell us, where can people have a look at all the stats that you put through? I know royafrica.com is the website, but what should people do?
If they're following us on Twitter, you can follow @Tonya ROI or @RoyAfrica.
Well, Tonya, fantastic. Thank you for joining us and always giving us, keeping the finger on the pulse a little bit. What's happening on social media, always difficult, it seems, to keep track. Things change so quickly, but wonderful to have you again with us.
Thanks, Evan.